Welcome to Marcos on Air. This podcast was cultivated and created with the sole purpose of creating a space where people can start transforming their pain into power. In today's episode, we will be sitting with Aaron Gonzales, 2011 middleweight Pan Am champion. I hope you guys enjoy the show. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hey, just wanted to take a few moments to introduce my friend, who's more like a brother to me. And this is a very, very special moment for me because when we met in a lifestyle where we were both in the heart of our addiction. And it's interesting. I want to, I guess, kind of unpack that a little bit because a lot of times people think about addiction and they think about drugs and alcohol.
It's the lifestyle.
And I feel at that point in time, we were more addicted to the lifestyle. When we met and we were brought together by the universe or God, we were in such a different space. And to be here today and just have the opportunity to share this moment together, to talk about where we're at today is really special for me. So I want to welcome Aaron Gonzales.
Thank you. I love you.
And I love you too, brother. And Aaron Gonzales has always been a good mentor to me. And I remember even in the lifestyle, he kind of helped me navigate through that kind of survival mindset that you needed to have in order to kind of come out of what we came out of. But
the visual just came right now of initially what that looked like.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start there. I wanted to start kind of what pulled you into that lifestyle, and then what was the turning point when you turned to mixed martial arts, because you also are a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, right? And you fought in Brazil. And so there's so much in that. I could imagine the training. And so was that the vehicle that took you off the streets? Or first talk a little bit about just what attracted you to the lifestyle.
What attracted me initially was just the environment. I was born into a family that was politically, my dad's uncles and them were a part of factions that were politicians, not in the sense like of Trump or Bush or any of those, but in a different sense, in different institutions and stuff.
Right.
And they were from one side of. There was two rival cities. A lot of gang violence there, a lot of deaths. In the 70s, 80s, not still today actually. And my dad's uncles and them were from one side. They were from the beach, and my dad and them were from the projects. And my dad and them, they were all street gang members. They were from that street, from them projects. My dad's uncles and them were from the other side, but they were more affiliated with different factions and institutions. And
See, there's a kind of disparity there too, from projects to the beach. It's almost like Park Place to Park Bench.
Yeah. You know
what was that like for you, just having that kind of contrast in your life?
The first thing I remember is there was violence, So the baseline where I operated from was terror, because I knew that death was a consequence, my dad's death when I was 10, but the violence I saw inside the house, but then there was violence directly outside the house, like, death.
Right.
And so I knew that whatever was transpiring, that death was a consequence. I didn't understand what that meant or I just knew that was just no longer, didn't exist, or what I just knew that there was, like, that was a consequence, and okay, so survival. So my baseline of where I operated from was terror. It wasn't even fear, because I've had fear of public speaking, fear of,
right.
Just I had discomfort in everything I did, just being in my own body,
Right.
But there was terror, and that was where I operated from.
What was the belief underneath the terror? So you were exposed to death at such a young age, and you were operating from this kind of place of terror. Were there any beliefs underneath that?
There's a process that I went through, a 12-step process, a spiritual way of life that I was guided to, and going through part of the process is like a fearless and thorough inventory. So kind of looking at an inventory of my life, And in that process, you start to see like kind of like the iceberg, right? And what I thought was fears, fear of success, fear of not being lovable, fear of I had these fears, and I thought that okay, I can work through these. I can, I can do affirmations. I could do all
Right.
these things. I can sit, in sessions with you, and it's been so helpful, doing those. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath it, all was belief systems, and I had no value of human life. I was operating from terror. I really believed that I wasn't lovable, that I didn't deserve to be alive. These things that was actually my belief systems. So that was a little. There took the evolving the
Right.
development was I had to be more intense with the work.
Can I ask
Right.
you a question real quick? Do you know what your earliest childhood experience was, like your earliest memory? Because usually that's what sets the belief. Sometimes like there's something that stood out so much. I'm just curious.
The earliest, there's a couple early ones. There's one of my mom having me on the back of her bike, that was so awesome. So awesome. There's one where my mom and dad were in disagreement, and like my dad's my favorite person in the world. He's I got to have him in my life for 10 years. And it's for me it's better to have had than to have never had at all. Like there's no doubt, and even spending time with you.
Right.
You shared something with me about when we pass, that we pass 2 times in this existence, right?
Right.
Once in the physical, right? And then once when the word is no longer spoken of us, right? So when our memories, because I never spoke about my dad for maybe 20, 30 years. So my children didn't know their grandpa's name, any of his memories, any of the things we did, And when you shared that with me, I said, I want to make sure my dad's memory is alive, and I want to, seek out people who knew him and find what their memories are of him, and so I can he can live on through that,
Right.
But so yeah, he probably wasn't gonna get any Father of the Year awards, and just like I'm not as well, not this year. I think they might have got my address mixed up, but he had they must have been disagreement about me seeing him, and I remember the door kicked in at my mom's house, so it was like a home invasion, and I remember seeing him get physical with my mom, and then my brother. I didn't see anything wrong with that time. I was maybe 5 years old. I'm not sure, and I just wanted to go with my dad. My older brother was pulling me in the room and telling me to hide. And I didn't understand who I was hiding from. What am I hiding from? Even though the door just got kicked in,
Right.
my mom's getting beat up out there. But and then when he came in the room, I'm like, I'm going with my dad. I'm going with my dad. Like I want to go with my dad. And I remember being we were in a car in a van, and I remember sitting in the back, and it smelled like maybe like alcohol or urine. So it didn't smell good. There were some guys back there, and I probably knew most of them, but it was dark. And then I went and sat in the middle by my dad and them, and we ended up going to the projects. I remember going to the projects, and then some cops flashing their lights on us, and I'm on my Uncle Daniel's shoulders, and the cops are saying, having us disperse or whatever the case is, and we go to a funeral. And we go to the funeral at St. Gerard's, and there's a lot of people outside of it. Big event in that neighborhood. There's a lot of active, people who are part of that community who are active in the lifestyle. So it's big event, and a situation happens, and all this is happening the same day. Same night. A car pulls up, and there's a couple words exchanged, and then somebody throws a bottle at the car, and all of a sudden the car starts shooting, and we're at a funeral. And that's that's my earliest. So welcome.
Makes sense for your beliefs, huh?
Welcome home.
No, and I connect.
beautiful, though.
I connect to that because I also grew up in a home where there was domestic violence, and I think back to my earliest childhood memory, and I remember always hearing arguing. Never really seen anything up until this one time. Right, there was always arguing in my parents' room. And as a kid, I remember feeling terrified in the other room, kind of with my ear on the door, trying to hear, what's going on. And well, one day I built the courage to go peek through the door. And so they had been drinking because both my parents struggled with addiction. And I remember peeking through the door, and I see my dad, and he has my mom by the hair, and he looks back at me, and he has this look on his face that would just kind of terrified me, and I just froze. And my brother, oldest brother, ended up kind of, walking me back to the room and kind of helping me calm down. But that was like the earliest and honestly only childhood memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Makes me think of your brother right now.
right,
Like, where is he? How can we be
right,
maximum usefulness to him? Yeah.
right.
What up?
So we were talking, Chelsea and I were talking about this on the last episode. We were talking about how I think she said 90% of how we interact with the world is based on kind of those unconscious beliefs, right? That we have instilled in us.
It's the first 7 years of life.
And so
Because we're in the lower vibration theta. So we're just downloading.
Right.
right,
Lower but higher in some ways, right? 'Cause
it's, right. So
Which is lower vibration. But that's so you're just downloading. So it's like when you're
Right.
first waking up, when you're going to sleep, you're in theta, so you're more suggestible. So that's when you do your affirmations, right? But the first 7 years of life, you're in that lower vibration. You can't make a conscious thought yet.
right.
Right.
You
But,
just
I mean,
psychic kind of like lots of kids, right? Sponges.
You're just downloading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's Bruce Lipton and them's work.
Yeah.
Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, I love.
So you had this kind of terror, and you had these kind of unconscious beliefs that you were not lovable, you were not good enough, and so you get into the lifestyle. At what point did mixed martial arts come into the picture? Like, how did those two worlds merge for you?
You know what? That's yeah, I never thought about that. So I started fairly early with becoming active, like seeing, okay, this is what I want to pursue. And I'm passionate. If I'm not passionate about it, I won't do it. So I've always been passionate. So the lifestyle I was very passionate about. So strategy was a big thing. Physically being in good shape, and being athletic, I want to be able to perform in battle if these things happen, right? So I always thought, like, growing up, my brother would have me fight with all his friends. So, and he's 5 years older than me. So when I was 8, they were 13, and going and I would get the better of them because I had a uncle who had got us pretty familiar with like speed bags and just kind of moving around. Oh. And so I didn't know it, but plus I played sports, so I knew like distance, rhythm, timing, and I just naturally, well, maybe not so naturally, but from sports and from being active, that
It came natural to you.
it was it was already kind of instilled. So
So you grew up fighting.
yeah, and then growing up, making the choices I did, putting myself in places, gated communities and things of that nature at a young age, and then, making those choices throughout my life, staying in that environment. Physically, there's going to be, disputes are handled mostly in a pretty aggressive manner, So when I came home this last time, I had offered to give my kidney to my godson. And, his mom said, well, you can't do drugs or you can't drink. And I'm like, not a problem. And it was never a problem in my life that I seen. I had partied and stuff. I thought what I call partying, but I never really had a good enough run out here to like know that I lost the power of choice in it, like at some point, So I said, okay, if I come home, I'll do that. I'm not gonna party. I was still incarcerated at the time. I said, okay, I'm not gonna party. I won't do any of that. Okay. She said, you got to stay out of jail. And I said, I'm actually in jail at the time. I'm like, okay, we'll figure it out.
No pressure.
That's not possible.
I think I was 32 at the time, and I had started the career at 12. My mom would say, what career? Yeah. One time she was like, well, they came to and hit the house, and I was like, she's like, she was under the illusion that I wasn't capable of these things,
Right.
and because I'm her baby, and she was like, just tell them who did it. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna tell them myself. But then I said, that'll ruin my career. And she said, what career? She was baffled. I'm like, I feel ridiculous right now, But yeah, so I think so. When I came home, there was a couple of guys who we used to fight. My brother's friends, we used to fight and stuff. And I used to get the better of back then, who who train now mixed martial arts. You know,
Okay.
it was
So that was the connection.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had mentioned that I want to go train. You know, I would just want to stay in shape. And then I got a couple phone calls and they're like, yeah, come in. I go, and I'm like, yeah. And I was really good shape at the time, probably like, I don't know, really good shape, probably running 5 miles a day if we weren't locked up, playing handball, basketball, gambling on these things. So I was like, you know, like I don't think anything's gonna change. I'm in better shape than I was when I was a little kid. And then that wasn't the case when I went to go train. And you know, was found out quickly that whoever I had been fighting my whole life apparently didn't know how to fight, and neither did I. And so it was like just humble pie that there is this modality, this style, are collectively bringing in styles together that can incapacitate or neutralize a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I want to be a part of this. I just want to do it because usually my
Right.
ego would be like, go get a knife, cut him, go get a gun, stop him, But I just was so enamored by like that a man could do this to me. And I just thought, oh my God, thank God I never ran into something like this. This would have not
In the
turned out
streets,
well,
yeah.
or in prison, like thank God, or anywhere.
Wait, so you got introduced and you got into mixed martial arts and you found out you couldn't fight. I love
That's
this.
very humbling, huh?
Very, yeah. And I'm like, my record in the streets and in jail looks pretty good, But
Right.
it's like when they try to protect the boxer, though, they give him real easy fights. I don't know. Yeah.
Wait, when did you make the connection that you know what, I actually am good at this? Like I can actually go somewhere because you made it to the top, right?
I was intense.
Did you know that, or did?
There's a delusional belief. I think,
Okay.
There's that, because it's delusional when you say, like, I'm going to be a world champion. And everybody's like, what? You are? The people who know you are like, what? How is that going to happen?
Right.
But you, there's a belief that you have when you just know that that I'm going to put myself in the best position. I'm going to outwork, like, there's nothing, the sweat equity that's put into it. Like, I knew that. At some point, I believed. I said, you know what, my team, we're sharpening. Like we're intense individuals. We keep each other accountable. Like it's like there's something special happening here, And it wasn't ever about the destination, because once I believed it, I said, And that day, I'm like, I'm the best in the world. Today, and this day, I'm the best in the world. There's no way. There's that's mine, But I think. At some point, it's once you've done these affirmations so much, or you've done the work, like it's true. It's true. And once I believe it, it's true, 100%.
That's so. I got a question for Chelsea, because I think this is a very valuable point, right? Because if it's these kind of beliefs that drive us to, believing that we're not good enough, and so once you make that decision and you form that belief that, you know what, I do belong, I am good enough, I am worthy enough.
Yeah.
Like, how do you arrive to that place? How do you take someone from believing that they're not good enough, right? That they're not lovable, to the place of kind of like how Aaron described, like arriving to this place. Like once he recorded that and he believed that like he could do it, there was nothing getting in the way of that.
Right. I think, you have to be like, mind, body, spirit, like, and uncover some of the unconscious stuff, that's been programmed for so long, and then work through that maybe with someone, but also like small steps towards himself, seeing him do things, right? That like, it's like little bits here and there. Okay, I can do this. Okay, I can do this, right? So people always just want to go, just do it, right? No, but it takes step by step of little things every day, right? That you overcome. And then you're like, okay, wow, I can see the results. Now I feel better. So now I can do this. But everything has to be in alignment. So many people want to like manifest or just look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm amazing, right? But they don't believe it, right? And they're not going to believe it until they have actual situations and experiences where they've done that themselves and overcome adversity.
I love what she said about that manifest, because what I was thinking was attraction, right? Really, the attraction. But it's like, because if you've reached, high performing or like a place of like, oh, this was a dream, or this was, I say a dream because maybe a goal, I already believe a goal, but a dream, that's something it takes some conditioning to believe, right? But then you could reverse engineer from there with the people who have done it. Reverse engineer. Well, what would you have said to your so what would that look like now if you're mentoring somebody to follow your footsteps? And it's like, okay, well, how do I attract? And it's like, okay, what's clear, concise choice of positive words, right? Then it's creative visualization, right? So that I'm visualizing this creative, like this moment here. This has already happened. Like I've already visualized that this. I didn't know who you were yet, and I didn't know Darren, but I knew this. Like I've already seen this because I visualized it creatively, right? So concise choice of positive words. So if you really want to attract, right? If you really which we do, right? The reverse engineered way, according to Donna Pani, and I think the studies that have shown, and I think it's worth diving into it. And please, anybody I mentioned, please feel free. And if anything I say, I love to get them critical thinking and go find out for yourself and prove me wrong, please. I can just tell you what's worked for me in my life and those I've shared it with,
Right.
Because I want to reverse engineer what I've done and share it with others. I don't want to sit here. I want to eat alone. I want to eat, I want to share this feeling, this life, this experience, right? So it's clear, concise choice of positive words. So choice of positive words, creative visualization, and then the feeling. So assuming the feeling. So when I sit in meditation, right, that I already feel that what it feels to sit on that podium, what it feels to abundance. I have abundance. I am abundance. I am love. I am like that. But the feeling, because the feeling
is everything.
Yes, that's everything.
That's everything. You have to feel it, right? Before you can. Yep. And so many people don't. It's like, oh my God, where is it? It's not there. It's not there. It's not there.
When it does happen. But the way to reverse that is the feeling already is assumed. Like I am life. I am love. I am light. I have abundance right here, right now. And now it's just a matter of staying in that feeling as long as I can. Bouts throughout the day, and then the words that I utilize, right? Concise choice of positive words, but the feeling being the most important.
Because everything we want, it's just about the feeling, right? So I'll just be like, okay, I want this. Okay, why? Because why? How's that going to make your life better? Because what? Because I want to feel. Right?
But see, this was the challenge for me though, because I never had the feelings. Because of the upbringing, I was severed at the neck. And so I was very cerebral in the sense that like everything was analytical to me. Like there was no room for emotions. To me, emotions meant that like you were weak.
Right.
And if you showed that, like you were going to be a victim.
Yeah.
And so like, I think that was the disconnect for me for years until actually I came into recovery and started to learn more about myself and my body. And making that connection between like my mind and my body allowed me to say, wait a minute, there's a whole nother experience. It's funny, I was on the Oculus the other day. My son just got an Oculus and there's tons of different games, but I went into one of these they have all these little chat rooms and I went and I was playing Cards of Humanity with like some dude in London and like some other person in Germany, and we're in this backyard in this kind of in the virtual world. We're having a barbecue playing Cards for Humanity. But what was funny is that my avatar only had hands and a head. And so I think about that. I was like, wait, that's me. When I came into recovery, like, dude, I had no body. Like it was head and hands. That was it. And like maybe feet. And then I was like, wait, I have a leg. Wait, I have a lot of feelings here in my gut. And then I started to like reconnect to my body and understand that, you know what, there's a whole nother world down there that I have not experienced, that I've been severed from like the age of 5.
Right.
And so that was weird in itself. Right? Like, oh, like I have feelings.
And you almost don't know what they are. When I talk with clients, I'm like,
what is this?
Right? Addiction is just a feelings disease, right?
Yes.
You don't know how to feel.
Yes. So to me, that was a big piece. And I totally believe that what I feel and what I believe, I could manifest. Like I've experienced that in my own life. Even when I think about this show and when I think about like what we're doing today and on this platform, like I remember, praying to God and asking, the universe provide a way, provide a way, like just whatever needs to come into fruition for this platform to take place, like make it happen.
I remember when Marco was born, the day Marco was born, I met you at the hospital.
Oh, my son, my oldest son.
I was like,
Junior.
wait.
No, Junior. Junior.
And then I asked you, I said, so what do you want to do? What excites you? What brings you to life? You said, I want to be a motivational speaker.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I said, thank God, because that was all about that. I was doing a lot of leadership and development like that's before Jim Rohn had passed, and some other people in my life was like, oh, thank God. If he would have said anything else, I know, like, very few, I very little, I know a lot about very little, and that was one of the things I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good path. Good.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I started sharing like Les Brown and the different things, and your trajectory.
Yeah. I was taking notes.
Malibu. Yeah,
I was there taking
you
notes.
went to Malibu, you went to there, and ended up in this moment right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very, very beautiful moment. And I think the universe works in that way. Right. And it's never on our time, or it's never been on my time.
Right.
It's always been on obviously on the universe's time, because I feel like there's things that I have wanted in my life that weren't given to me. And a big part of that had to do with me not being ready for those things. I think there were some things inside me that I still needed to work out, right? That God or the universe needed to work out of me in order to be given that responsibility.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's never on our time. And I think my grandmother kind of helped me with that a lot. She would always say, if one door closes, another one open, and God will never put you where you're not supposed to be, where he needs you.
Right.
And so that's really,
she's one of the wisest.
she was really wise.
She had so much life experience through watching you guys, the whole family of man, that was just unconditional love.
Right.
You guys could do no wrong in her eyes.
Right. Yeah. The only unconditional love I think that I, talking back about feelings, is that I ever experienced.
That's all you needed, though.
But that helps, right? Like, that's all you need. One person
was
to
the
just
anchor.
like,
She was the anchor.
be there
Thank
for
God
you.
for her.
Yeah. Love her. Rest in peace, Grandma. You here? She's here with us right now.
Hi, Grandma.
Yeah.
What's your favorite memory of her?
Oh man,
favorite
there's
memories?
so many. There's so many, but I feel. Let me see. See if I can come up with one, because there's so many. I mean, she's done so much for me. But I'll tell you my favorite memory, and this is kind of like a sad memory, very very sad memory, because so after my parents' divorce, my dad moved out. My mom struggled, kind of leaned into alcohol for a long time. And she eventually kind of lost her place and lost her job. And we ended up moving into this station wagon. And we were living at Alondra Park for like 2 days. We had nowhere to go. All our family had moved out. And my grandmother was in Texas at the time. And the moment that she found out that was the circumstance, she got on a plane that night, came back, and took us out of that experience.
Aww.
And so for me, that was like, it was such a precious memory, because without her, I don't think I would have survived that. I mean, I was 6 at the time.
She's a hero.
So,
Man,
so there's so many moments like that where she's just my saving grace that, it's just beautiful. She was just a beautiful woman.
what was her name?
Ophelia.
Ophelia.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that name.
She's Costa Rican.
Oh.
Yeah. So I get my Costa Rican from her.
Okay, I love it. You even say that cool. Say it again.
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Tico. Tico is what they call them. I haven't made it out there. I need to make a trip to Costa Rica. Maybe go surfing.
I think your grandma's telling you.
She's
Maybe
saying
it's like,
it's time.
right?
Time to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to go back and talk about, because you mentioned a kidney. You giving it to your godson, right?
Wow.
Did that ever happen, or what?
So we did all the process when I paroled, and you have to be a match, and they go through the blood. If it's my blood's universal, so we were compatible. Everything was compatible. We went through the whole process, and that's my life changed because of that. So it wasn't necessarily for me to save his life, right? It was for him to save my life. So I think that's the inspiration of as I got into recovery, of the way I'm passionate about it and how I devote my life to service. Or if I'm in your life, then I have to impact it in a meaningful way. And if not, then I'll humbly bow out of your life, and invite you.
So he wasn't able to receive the kidney?
Well, what happened was we were good to go, but he needed to have 3 readings in a row that were good. So each month he would go in for readings, and he had a dialysis machine at his house. So he had no kidneys at the time. So, but he would plug into dialysis at his house every night. So while we're waiting for the process, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to stay out of jail because I've never done that since I was 12 years old. I'm 32 at the time. So I'm like, everything that I'm skilled at carries time. You know, it's going to send me back to where I've come from. So I never like opened a cash register or hammered a nail, or I had no value to the marketplace, you know, to bring anything to a value to any company or really anybody's life, you know. So I had to figure out how to try to like life skills, you know, self-sustaining, you know. So while I'm figuring out this dance, you know, that's how I ended up getting to the gym. Well, you know, finding
mixed martial arts.
And
so he didn't make it.
you know, he ended up passing. So so throughout the process, my life is changing. We're kind of walking hand in hand, side by side, waiting for the moment, you know. So I'm trying to get my body to do whatever it can, you know. I'm finding performance and find the, you know, sports science lab and all these different trainings.
You just opened up your own sports science lab, right?
No, not yet. When he passed.
When he passed.
Yeah, when he passed. So we're going through the process, and I'm learning that training people is a passion of mine. So I'm getting into that while I'm training, you know, for the world championships and stuff. And one day he has, I think, a seizure. And when the paramedics came, it wasn't communicated clearly that he didn't have kidneys, so that they would have to be mindful of whatever they were going to try to get to stabilize him, or, you know.
So the body won't reject it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And whatever medicate or whatever device they used or whatever it was too much for his body. And sent him into a coma, and then he never made it back. So that was I'm not sure how long I was out at that point, but my life was changed. You know, by that time I already had my own gym, so I started in the gym where I trained at, and I would train, you know, alcoholically. I do too much of anything. That's just the right amount for me. You know, anything, spirituality, freedom, happiness, you know, drugs, alcohol, all that, everything. Too much of anything is just the right amount for me. So I was training at the place where I ended up opening the gym inside of where I trained, because I was there 3 times a day training. Then I ended up, we had a disagreement, and I ended up going to another place, and then finally opened my own. And then we opened the sports science lab and opened 2 places, you know, which remarkable. It's
right.
It's
So a question. So, because I think about, you know, we're talking about my grandmother, and, you know, you're talking about your godson. And so I remember 8 years ago when she passed away. She passed away at the same time and day that my daughter was born.
Wow.
And so I remember getting,
goodness.
you know, calls and texts from my family saying, hey, grandma's not going to make it. And I'm in the delivery room with my wife. We're about to deliver my daughter. And I have all these mixed feelings about, like, do I stay here? Do I go there? So anyways, after she passed, I had this kind of overwhelmed guilt that just kind of weighed me down. And I ended up kind of suppressing that for years. And it would always come out every year around the same time. It would come out in anger because I didn't know how to kind of get in touch with the guilt. So I would push it down, and then, like, around that time that she passed, like, you know, every year around the time where she passed, it would all come out. And finally my wife was like, you know what, your attitude stinks. Like, you need to go do something with that, because she had enough, because it was a pattern.
Right.
And it happened every year for 8 years. I would leave the house. I didn't want to be around no one. And so anyways, I went back to therapy, and I was in therapy, and we were talking about it. And up until that point, I never talked about it. And kind of what we were talking about earlier is, I remember my therapist shared something with me that I shared with you that basically changed my whole perspective on that. And she said that we die 2 deaths. We die the physical death, and then we die when people stop talking about us. And so immediately I knew what I needed to do in order to heal is learn how to talk about my grandmother and honoring her memories and sharing her life. So
she's the one who said, when one door closes, another one opens. And that's what life and death is.
Alpha Omega right there.
And your daughter was born,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Exactly.
But like,
I mean, I get
and that's like a
goosebumps
blessing.
when I talk about it,
Right?
because there's been experiences too, and this is probably more for you. And we're going to swing back because I want to hear and learn more about like how you kind of navigated that. Because for me, it was an 8-year journey to finally grieve.
Yeah.
Right? It was an 8-year journey to finally grieve and learn how to live with the pain, because I didn't the pain never goes away, but I've been able to transform my pain and channel it into things that I'm passionate about, right? But the question I think for you, Chelsea, is when you think about like these experiences with life and death, right? Because you're so you don't know, at the age of 4 she was picking up on like energies and like is into the spiritual realm.
Nice.
I'm kind of curious, what are your thoughts around like people who have passed, that spiritual component to like ohms, and they have all these kind of
Yeah.
signs that people say that give you, because I literally remember my daughter saying things when she started to talk that only my grandmother and I
Yes.
knew.
Yeah.
And then when I would say, hey, repeat that,
Yeah.
she would just go about her business. And I used to
Right.
like, what? You're here?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I bet your grandma or your daughter has similar characteristics, right? And also, your grandma like channels through her sometimes,
I believe that.
and so that's what she was doing, because it was especially just like the moment was just like, perfect. I
Right.
mean, it wasn't perfect that she passed away, but it was just like,
Well, now I see it
everything.
as it was perfect, because it was perfect in the sense that it brought my family closer together, and it brought other family members who we have not talked for years together, and we get to bond and have these experiences of our experiences with my grandmother. So
Yeah.
I think it was perfect. It was painful, but I think it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. Sad, and I miss her as always. But
And yeah,
I think that I've learned to accept that loss and understand that it's not that she's not here; she's always here with me. And I honestly feel that my connection to God or the universe has strengthened as a result of her being in heaven, because now I'm connected directly to that spiritual realm through her. So when I'm talking to her, I'm talking to God, and when I'm talking to God, I'm talking to the universe, and it's just this overwhelming feeling that allows me to feel okay,
yeah,
because I know she can do more for me up there
right.
than she could ever do for me in the physical realm. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's so beautiful.
yeah, so your godson, right? What was his name?
Peanut Feliciano.
Peanut Feliciano. So yeah, take us through that, the grief that came with that, and help us kind of understand what helped you through that.
That when he passed, at the same time I had my fiance at the time. She was pregnant, and we were just opening the gym. We were open under construction because financially we were at a place where we needed to start we needed to have more streams of revenue to be able to finish construction. So we had to keep it open so we're like jackhammering in the thing while there's classes going on, And luckily we just brought something very, very unique at the time. Still fairly unique. Nothing new though, but to the table. So there was an environment that was a culture that was created there that people just want to be a part of. Because I didn't know anything about marketing or forecasting, trending, or social media, any of that. People, and we were literally hidden, and people would, word of mouth, they would find us, Usher, professional athletes, UFC fighters who were not champions at the time, and won some championships with us. People would end up at my place. I'm like, that's amazing, because we don't do any advertising, But when he passed, the day of his burial, so me and my fiance went to the viewing the night before, and then was supposed to be a pallbearer at the funeral, at the burial, and she's pregnant at the time, and she starts complaining about having some stomach pains, and I'm not. I just at that point in my life, the only tool I had was a hammer. So every problem looked like like a nail. It was so I had no emotional intelligence, no sort of coping, and very self-centered. At times it was about me, how I'm feeling, and this. And I didn't know at the time, wasn't aware of that, but I didn't think it was that serious. Whatever was going on, I said, "Come on, let's go to sleep, and let's tomorrow we're gonna give him a proper send off." And then she was shooken up about whatever was going on. So I'm like, all right, let's go to the hospital. And I was very resentful about it, not being kind or loving by any means, And so it ends up being that she's miscarrying. So the day we're burying my godson, she's miscarrying the baby, and this girl, like, I love with all my heart, I just didn't have the capacity. I can only express love to the capacity that I feel love, right? And I didn't know then, but I just knew that
you were hurting.
Yeah,
you were in pain,
and I had been suffering for so long. I
right.
had no idea, and it's when the way it used to be was, if I felt bad, not only did I want you to know that I felt bad, but I probably want to get you involved somehow too. Or I want to share that with you. Maybe not directly, like by but somehow.
Right.
And so that was definitely so grieving. I didn't even the grieving process. I'd never known about bereavement or any of never been introduced to Brene Brown and maybe a healthy way of doing or a way that would be it's unique to each person. But I just didn't. I just bottled it in.
Unique.
Yeah. And I can celebrate. There was a celebration of life. One of my guys that I walked through the steps with, and we surfed together. We have same dark sense of humor, very sarcastic. One of my guys, he's 24 years old, and he overdosed about 4 months back. Yeah, 4 months and a couple of days now. And we did a celebration of life. And I've celebrated people's lives. Some of my best friends, my family have passed away. And the last thing I always say to someone when we part is, I love you, always, 100% of the time, And so for me to celebrate people's lives, it's like I celebrate people's lives because of the life we lived and how many people that have passed in my life that I've lost 2 godchildren. 2 of my godchildren have passed away, one at 14 and one at 20. So I know, and at the time when my goddaughter passed away, I'm in the hole incarcerated. I'm in timeout inside of incarceration.
Not only incarcerated in the security housing unit, which is like another probably room,
jail inside of a jail,
smaller, half of this room with this like a slab steel kind of bed and a steel toilet.
Yeah,
24 hours a day. So yeah, just to give
horrible.
you an idea of what that looks like, and it's so confined that on the door there's like a little tray slot where they come and pass you your food. So you don't even come out to eat. You're like maximum security. And if you do have to come out, you have to get handcuffed. And then inside your cell through the little tray slot. And then they escort you to what's called these dog kennels, right?
They call them
They call them dog kennels because they're gates.
So horrible.
And then they put you in there and you get like an hour. So just to give you an idea of what that.
Yeah. So when I found out she passed, it was surreal, and it didn't register like, okay, well, if I come home, she's gonna be there though, right? Though I don't, it just didn't really. So the grieving, there wasn't really. It was more of a, not even something I wasn't even willing to accept or.
Were you using at the time, or did using come after that?
After.
Okay.
Yeah, everything happened after. Like I partied when I, when I was young, with my brother and stuff, and then, experimenting and stuff. But my experimentation is pretty intense, so it probably looks like someone's like, "Oh my God,
subjective research."
That guy's
Got
like,
some good subjective research.
Separate him from that. Those guys, they're gonna die. It's like if I do, hallucinogens, I'm buying a sheet or a whole thing of liquid, and I'm going to town. Whatever it is, there's an overabundance of it, and I'm gonna do as much of it full throttle. But I always had the power of choice. I never had lost a power of choice. I've never been home long enough to get on a run to where I ever like suffer the consequences of like not doing.
But do you ever feel like in those moments, did the thought ever cross your mind that maybe not being on this kind of earth would be better? Like in those pockets? Because I know
There was a time, like for a little, like just a second, like I know,
and the reason why I asked is because even with my own addiction, I've gotten to that point where that I flirted with that idea and thinking that, you know what, people will probably just be better off without me. And so I flirted with the idea, right?
Recently was probably the most recent, like in the, like not in the beginning of my life or like, you know, the first, but probably like when I called you when I was in down south, you know,
right.
That was probably the first time where I thought like, oh, maybe better off. But I think I had accepted. I was actually probably, I was young. Too young to be doing hallucinogens. And I remember at one point I went to the mirror. I was, you know, it was an 8-hour trip, probably a little bit longer. And I was like, I'm going to be a lifer. Like I see the decisions I make and I see I don't think I'm going to die.
But you were going to go to prison.
For sure. I knew I was going to be there forever. You know, I knew that. And I kind of accepted that. And I said, okay, so I'll do everything to put myself in a position strategically to make sure that I stay alive. So, so I just thought that it was going to end a certain way, whether it was, you know, it's going to be something spectacular. But I never thought it'd maybe be better without me. But I thought, this is not going to last very long. You know, the only way it's going to last long is if I'm in lifer. But out here, it's going to end something spectacular, you know?
Chelsea, what's coming up for you? Any thoughts? I'm curious to hear.
I don't know. I was just like, I don't know. I'm just curious about like your prison experiences, I guess. And just like, I was like visualizing, you know, that whole.
The dog kennel?
Yeah. Like I've visited prisons, you know, I haven't like been in prison.
You work with people there?
No, like my minor was like criminal justice. So I've like done like tours, you know, of like,
nice.
Yeah.
Wow,
and I've been to jail, but I've never been to prison. But,
okay.
So I was just like, I'm like, it's like the movies, you know, but
they would benefit from your work there for sure.
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't take you as a badass though. You've been to jail.
I know.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, kind of slipped
Did they
through.
give you a nickname in
that
there?
kind of slipped through.
I wasn't there for very long.
Did you get like a nickname in jail?
No, I remember like there's two crazy women like in the cell, and I was like, what are you doing, Chelsea? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? You know, even like the people that were working there, like, what are you doing? Like, this is not for you. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah, that kind of slipped through the cracks. Yeah, when she said she'd been there too.
Yeah, and they're like, oh well. This one crazy crackhead woman, like with no teeth, and she just was like, I'm like, I can never go back here. Like, this is fucking, and like, I'll always remember her. Yeah. But
wait, so how'd you know she smoked crack?
She just looked like she was on crack. It was probably just like a holding cell, you know, like when you first get arrested, then you go to like whatever they put you there, and then you're out. Like I never like went, you know.
I'm thinking I'm very fortunate to have my teeth.
Wait, have you ever smoked crack?
No.
Okay.
It's classy. Yeah, recreationally.
On a romantic night, I've had a couple crack runs
you
myself.
have?
Yeah, crack and Hennessy is like no other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a real.
Thankfully,
real
I kept all my teeth. But
That's good.
Yeah, brush them if you got them for sure.
Yeah, brush them if you got them.
You don't have to floss though. I like hardly floss.
It's interesting.
It has carcinogens in it. You got to get activated charcoal floss because come to find out the strip on there has carcinogens. You know what's crazy is we're talking about smoking crack and doing these things, but I'm like, dude, you can't. Don't put carcinogens.
Don't put carcinogens in the milk.
Right?
No, don't buy it. It has carcinogens.
Isn't it so funny when you see like people at like treatment centers and stuff? They're like, I won't put that in my body. I'm like, okay. I'm like,
that's the irony.
That's the irony, though.
That's where I'm at. Like with I manage a recovery home.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And our vision, we'll open one, and I'm like, okay, because all the impurities I put in my body, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any awareness, but like now I look at, okay, my mattress. What is my mattress? Oh, it's flame retardant. That's carcinogen. Mine, not anymore. It's not.
Yeah.
But okay, so I just start from like doing a analysis of, okay, what am I sleeping on? Okay, it has carcinogens. Because there's so many things, like, right, there's things in the sky they're spraying, right? There's things in the glyphosate in the soil. There's all these things, right? Contributing factors. So what's within my control? That's all out of my control, right? I mean, as an activist, great. Yeah, no, I petition, I'll stand, I go to events, I do that for sure. You know, but what's within my control is like, okay, what I sleep on for sure, sheets, boom,
Right.
then right to the detergent. Okay, am I brushing my teeth? What am
He
I?
goes all the way in.
All the
with
way.
this.
Yeah.
He's in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's good. I am too.
Man. And then I think like, okay, all the impurities I put in my body for all those years and not being aware, like I want to put myself in the best position and then share that with others. And, it's allowed me to thrive. And I love learning, I get excited about this,
This is where I think it's kind of interesting though, because sometimes people can get so all about that stuff, right? Like I have to eat this way, I have to do that. Okay, this is, and then it's kind of contradicting in some ways to the power of thought, right? And what you believe. So it's like, if you're going to believe that this is going to give you cancer, then it just might give you cancer, right?
Right.
So it's like, then I'm not knocking you because I do the same thing, but it's just interesting. Like I struggle with that sometimes.
In psychology, we call that neurosis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it is like there's a documentary called Heal.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and them, and they showed how the placebo, what it actually does. Yeah, so that's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like for me, I just think of my thoughts. Is it constructive or destructive?
Right.
Is this thought I'm having it's constructive?
Yeah.
I think for me when I look at that is it's not perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I can have the tendency of letting perfectionism get in the way of good.
Right.
So for me is just being aware that it's never going to be perfect, and I have to accept and be okay with that, because the moment that I start to think and believe that I'm in control and I can make this kind of perfect for myself, I done kick God out the car seat, out the freaking driver's seat. I'm taking over.
Yeah.
And in reality, control is just an illusion. If you think about it, it's not real. You can't control other people. You can't control what happens when we leave this office. Like, it's an illusion. And what I've come to terms with is that the things I do have control over are my body, right? What I put into it, my mind, what I feed it, how I protect it, what I look at, conversations that I entertain. Everything else is influence. I can try to have an influence on an outcome, but for me to believe that I can control that, I think that is where I get tangled up. So I'm very aware of that.
Right.
I think the more mindful and aware of that, the more serenity it gives me. It really does kind of relieve me from that anxiety and worry.
Yeah.
That sometimes when I get caught up in that perfectionism, which perfectionism is a symptom of shame, as you
That's
know,
what yeah.
right? And so you dig deeper.
Shame.
Okay, what's underneath that? Well, it's all my shame.
Right.
It's all my inadequacies kind of showing up in my life in these kind of maladaptive
Never heard that. That's good.
ways. So it's looking underneath and kind of bringing some healing to that part of my life.
Yeah.
And so there is a balance. I guess just to your guys' point is there is a balance between it all.
Harmony.
Harmony. Yes.
Very well put.
Very well put.
But yeah, shame. Shame's the lowest vibration. Did you know that? 20. It's like 20, whatever.
Well,
there's like
I believe it, because
The
That
lowest.
makes sense.
when you're ashamed, what do?
Yeah.
right.
You want to hide,
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
right? You want to withdraw. You want to isolate. And I remember when I was in the heart of my addiction, it became a point where I would only come out at night and kind of lived in the shadows. Like before, it was very glamorizing. Like when I first got into it, it was fun. I remember and this is kind of going back to like junior high, high school. I remember when cannabis was introduced to me, and I smoked it. I was like, man, that's pretty good. And so I started to seek out people who had it, places where it was going to be at. So very infancy stages of my addiction and parties where there was going to be using.
Yeah.
But at some point, it became more about like, hey, bro, that was fire. Where'd you get that from?
Right.
And then I get the connect. Now I have my own connection, so I don't need to be at the party because I got my plug.
Yeah.
And so I'm going straight to the source. And I think that's where my addiction started to change, is when I started to have my direct line towards what I enjoyed doing. And then kind of very progressively ended up, like we were talking about earlier, smoking crack on Crenshaw in a hotel with a hooker.
Yeah, you bridge that. Yeah, how do you bridge that?
Gap? Like what? I'm like, wait, how did I get here? What happened? And
I was like you in jail, maybe. Like, wait,
Right?
what
Like,
decisions?
how did I get here? There was this store. It was called like Stop and Go. You probably remember the store. It was on Crenshaw and 147. And I used to go there, and they had these flower. You remember the flower?
Yeah.
They had the flower air fresheners, and
My jam.
I used to go there, and I'm like, "Can I get a flower and a piece of Brillo?" And the store lady would always look at me, and I'll be, walk of shame, right? Like hoping no one's behind me. And she was like, "You buy air freshener? You got no car?" And I'm like, "Shh." I pulled up on my bicycle, and she would like put me on blast, and
love her.
I felt
Sorry.
so ashamed.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Just hand it over, lady, hand it over." And I would take it, but I would use that air freshener to smoke crack. Like,
Really? I didn't know you could do
When
use
it's
air
so
freshener to
obvious
smoke
too,
crack.
when you're buying, like me and Roller, we were on a 4-day run, 5-day run, just copious amounts of way too much. On the third day, I think my cousin fronted us another 4.5. I was like, that wasn't. I was just sharing with you where we were.
That wasn't the
And
plan.
at some point, we ran out of materials to cook with and stuff. So we had to go get baking soda. We had to go to the stores like 5 a.m. Leaving the hotel, and we go into the supermarket that was open that time in Vaughn's, and all we get is this thing to cook out of. Like, it looked like a mini pot,
Yeah.
a mini pot, because we had rented a microwave from the hotel. They didn't have one in there, but he's like, "Oh, they'll let us rent one." I'm like, "What? How are they gonna rent
Renting
one? There's not even and they did. They brought it up for $5. I was like, "Oh shit, we're in the game." So baking soda in this little pot, and it just looked like 5 minutes. It wasn't a good look. Like, we felt so much shame. We were like, "Oh, they know what we're doing," and they're just like, "That's it."
Right. And when someone else,
That's
and
a
this is,
sharper
this is very like
funny.
a 90s, this is like a 90s drug, right?
Yeah.
Like this, we're talking 90s. I mean, there might be some like diehard kind of crack addicts today, but like,
Yeah, it's like
a lot
like
of
old school.
It's very
like,
old school.
yeah.
A lot have kind of transitioned into meth, right? Because even in 2000, I remember.
Right.
And my hat's off to them if they're still doing that. There's a way out if they
There's
ever
a
want
way
to.
out.
But if you're having fun, enjoy yourself.
Yes, but if
Please come home when you're ready.
when you're ready to come home,
We got you.
Come home, we
Please,
got
yeah.
you. But I remember, I look back and I'm so grateful that meth came into my life, because I don't
That's
think
crazy.
I would have.
Me too.
I would
That's
have
crazy.
gotten
I never
off
thought
of
of
crack.
that.
Meth's a good
Without-
drug, huh? It's
Because
sometimes
the
trying to
moment
do
it
that.
came into my life, I was like, I don't need crack.
Right.
I'm good. I want to take a car apart.
What's the
Like,
difference
It's
between
because you were never loyal to crack.
what is?
I got a resentment.
I was
See,
loyal to
he'll
the
be on my
foil.
constructive review tonight. He'll be.
No, what's
Just
the
gave
what's
up
the
crack that
difference?
easy?
Why did you like meth so much more than crack?
You get much more done.
Right.
With crack, it's so.
Crack-
I'll tell you
I've
exactly.
never done crack, so I don't know what the feel is.
I'll tell you
like.
exactly. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, feelings, right?
Right.
Everything's very kind of emotionally driven, right? So with like crack, there's this kind of empowerment that comes from when you're using it, because it's cocaine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're in there with a woman, there's like this power and control dynamic that like takes control in the room. And I was addicted to that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know it because
Me
the
too.
crack was good. But like looking back,
Yeah.
it's like the crack was whack.
It's heartbreaking. This is heartbreaking.
What really
is whack.
what really had my soul was the power and control
Right.
that came from that experience
Yeah.
that I was in, right?
Right.
And it ties back to that kind of faulty core belief that we were talking about earlier
Yeah.
of watching my dad,
Right.
abuse my mom and me not having no control. So feeling very
Right,
powerless in that
exactly.
situation. So you take someone who comes out of that, has never had a sense of power, and you throw them in that environment, who wouldn't get addicted to that?
Right.
Like, wow, this is
course.
powerful. I
Yeah.
orchestrate this room.
Right.
That's good stuff.
So
And it's
Man, I've never looked at it like that.
So I
but
think-
that's exactly what I felt. But I just want to be
Yeah.
able to convey it or communicate it how you just did.
big piece,
Mm-hmm.
big
That's
piece.
wild.
And so going back to the meth, I remember when that was introduced to me, it's a performance drug.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything I wanted to do, I could do it 10 times faster, 10 times better initially.
Right.
So that was the
until
hook.
until it's not.
Until, then you get hooked, and then you're running around in the same room with like 10 different projects, and everything's taken apart because you swear the feds are watching.
Yeah.
Like, someone's watching. they coming from me. And mind you, I'm like a crackhead that like, why would the feds want me?
Right.
Like, but that was the idea.
Right.
So it had its own kind of different experience with that. But honestly, I believe that helped me come off of crack. I don't think I would have ever stopped using crack if I wouldn't have been introduced to meth. And meth had its own challenges.
Right. Yeah.
Did you ever try meth?
Yeah, I used to snort meth, but I never like smoked
so you
it.
know.
Sometimes I love meth. I mean, don't like love it anymore, but
it's okay.
It served a purpose.
You loved it.
Yeah, I did that before I ever did like Coke. And then I did Coke and I was like, this is like the crap. I despise Coke. I think it's so gross and pointless.
Hard to go from that to that.
Right. Yeah. When the first thing.
Yeah. If you start with meth. Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't all burn like that. But
yeah. The interesting thing about crack too, and when someone's done cocaine is when you talk about it, you get bubble guts. So like right now we're talking about it and I'm like, man, I gotta go take a shit.
Well, anytime
that ever happens,
man, you used to always
about drugs.
The obsession's been lifted though. You know what? I'm not getting that at all this time.
Normally
I would not triggered at all.
But my
but normally I'll have to use the bathroom for sure.
Right.
Whoa, I gotta go shit.
Yeah. This is the first time that it hasn't. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe it's been a while, but I guess I don't talk about crack too often. I'm not opposed to it. If it'll my experience will benefit others for sure.
Yeah.
But it used to be 100%. I would feel something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
very interesting.
I think there's a value in being able to talk about these topics because there's so much shame that's tied to not only the drug but the experiences that sometimes we fall into when we're on the drug, right?
Yeah.
Like, you start doing meth and you find yourself in a hotel room sweating and doing all kinds of naughty things. Like, so I think it's more when you come off the drug and you have the memories of like the things that you did when you were in that lifestyle. And it's like, there's no way I can talk about this.
And then being the lowest vibration.
That's
where you're coming from.
Right. But that's what's like so hard sometimes when people like, I love certain things about AA and like 12-step and everything. But then I also like the thing I think they're missing in some ways is maybe not all, but just some is acknowledging that like when you get to that point where you like are not yourself anymore, like I believe like, and I know you kind of believe some of this too, like spirits, demons, whatever you want to call them, kind of enter your body and your vibration and take over. So I think not taking on that was necessarily you in that moment, you know what I mean? And letting that go.
Bingo.
Right?
Yes. It's how do you separate the addiction from the individual?
Right.
And I think that, I learned that early on through one of my mentors is you have to be able to separate the addiction from the individual in order to have compassion, right? In order to have some empathy, because sometimes we look at it and we say, how could that person do that? That's so disgusting. I can't believe you left your kids in the car while you went to go score crack. Like, it's so easy to pass judgment on someone.
Right.
But when you're able to separate the addiction from the individual, you could take a step back and say, wow, that person was in so much pain and was hurting so bad. And the only way they were able to get relief from that compromised their values, their beliefs, everything. So I think it is important to separate the individual from the addiction.
Yeah.
And that could be challenging sometimes, especially if it's someone that you love and care about.
Right.
Right? It's hard to separate. Like, no, you just stole from me. Like, how do you want me to separate the addiction from the individual? You just broke into my house.
Right. Right. But did they, or did, you know what I mean? Like, so you have the choice to take the drug, right? But then so that is your choice, right? But then after a certain point, if you're just like totally like disconnected from your body, right? And your spirit, it's like, I don't believe that that's that person anymore. Because I've seen clients like shift so dramatically, like come into my office, and they've just like done meth and they're like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, I feel like something's telling me to do this and I don't even want to do it, you know? It's like, who is this person? Like, I don't know you,
Well, I mean, scientifically, it's been proven, right, that like top down brain functioning, right, where you go from your kind of neocortex, that executive functioning part of the brain, right,
Yeah.
where our values sit, where our beliefs sit, where critical decision making, basically that intellectual part of our brain, and then the primitive kind of limbic system part of the brain, which is more autopilot response, things that we don't even have to think about. It's been proven that with sustained and continued abuse, that top down functioning gets disrupted, and we're no longer operating from the limbic system, but it's more from the primitive kind of survival part of our brain, which is the limbic system.
Yeah.
So think about that. In the heart of your addiction, there's no, because think about how many times have you drew a line in the sand and said, I would never do that.
Right.
I remember growing up and be like, I'll never be a crackhead. Like that's lame. I'm never going to be that. And then the further I got into my addiction, the more that became a reality for me.
Yeah.
So I think the science has already proven that it's not a moral disease, right?
Yeah. No, not at all.
And if you think about it, you could unpack that and say, wait, who benefits by it being a moral disease? If it's a choice, right? Who benefits from that? We could punish your ass,
Oh, right.
send you to jail,
Yeah.
right? You know, it's really thinking about like
Privatization.
if you're in
Good
you know, that's-
investment. It's a good investment.
If you look at it,
They made a lot of money.
I don't think it's not a moral
No, it's
issue
not moral
here.
at all, but they make it like you're bad, right? But it's just, we live in a monetary system where big pharma and all these people want to just...
Oh, she
Right.
went there. I wasn't gonna go
Sorry.
on big pharma, but we there.
I'll go off all of it, right?
Big pharma. She had to go there.
Sorry.
Wait, tell us more about big pharma, because I have mixed feelings about like medication,
Yeah.
and because I feel like there's severe mental health issues, right? Like where people struggle, and we had this conversation earlier, like schizophrenia, bipolar. I mean, I was exposed to that at a very young age, and I
Yeah.
saw medication be very effective in
Yeah.
those cases, but also
When
like,
you say effective, what do you mean effective?
like making life more manageable, right? Where I'm not like with schizophrenia, sometimes there's these ideas that, hey, we're about to go have dinner with the president.
I was,
Oh,
yeah, I was
okay. He's
diagnosed.
coming.
I was diagnosed with that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe speak to that from your perspective.
Yeah.
So my experience with that is 4 years ago, on two different occasions, I put myself in a position. I didn't have contraband on me, but I was in an altercation with police, and they weren't sure what to do with me, so they sent me to get evaluated. And when I got evaluated, mentally health evaluated, I got committed both times. So when they started, so I knew about evaluations. I had heard about them, so I thought, okay, 72 hours and I should be golden, and they don't reward honesty apparently if you want to go home.
Yeah. No.
So they kept you.
They kept me.
kept
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
why.
they started diagnosing, saying, there's some schizophrenia, there's PTSD, there's bipolar manic, there's all these things. And I'd say if I was observing myself, I'd say, yeah, for checks all the boxes for sure. But I knew immediately, I said, okay, you guys want to medicate me. And okay, I'll do whatever medication you want to give me now, but just know I'm not going to take any of it when I leave here. You're not profiting from me whatsoever. I don't trust you. I never have. I never will. I've read, I started off with David Icke like in the 90s, So I was already, with, Jason Trudeau, and then with how they hide the cures, So I was already exposed to this, Behold the Pale Horse, William H. Cooper, so I saw the inner workings of like, okay, they don't have my best interest, so
Right.
let me not get caught up in this loop. But at that point, this long in my life, I said, okay, I don't want to be a part of whatever you guys are doing, trying to get me on these drugs. I don't want to come off of drugs to get on drugs. Like, it didn't make sense to me. It didn't register to me. And I said, okay, well, I'll take whatever drugs you want now, but I'm going to stop cold turkey when I leave here. So just keep that in mind. And I'll get out of here eventually. I got myself to court in 10 days. The next time, about a month later, evaluated again, committed again. Now I stay for 17 days. And now they're saying, okay, well, you're never going to work again. Your faculties are gone. You'll never operate, I'd never be able to self-sustain.
So disabled.
4 years ago. So I was mentally disabled. So 4 years ago. Right. So I have schizophrenia, PTSD, but I don't identify with those things. I'm not. I showed bouts of that, and from observing for sure. But I'm not an alcoholic. I'm recovered. I'm not an addict. I'm recovered. I'm not cured by any means. And I wake up untreated.
That's the one that got me.
You got it.
Get him.
Get it. No.
Get him.
Oh my God. Get it out of here.
Peaceful resolution.
No.
Peaceful resolutions.
Die.
Where'd it go?
He heard me, Chelsea.
Allegedly, it was all based on speculation.
Oh, there it is.
Disclaimer: anything here spoken about today is all alleged and
Right.
fish accusation, speculation. Nothing can be confirmed or denied. Gotta say that as disclaimer. But yeah. So those things. So I don't identify. I don't say that I'm bad at names because I just have room for improvement. But now I remember almost everybody's name, and I'll utilize their name when I speak.
Wait, so this is interesting because, and I think it is a very important point to make, because how could you, and I'm just curious, right, to hear like your perspective as well. How could you diagnose someone with schizophrenia and bipolar after coming off of a meth?
Right.
Because don't the same symptoms, like if I
Yes.
think about like my
That's all it is.
my meth use,
Yeah.
I was schizophrenic too. I was
course.
having auditory hallucinations
Because
I was
spirits
having
are entering your
visual.
body. Yeah.
I mean, people were coming through the vents, like, and so anyone looking at me would say, "Yes, he's schizophrenic,"
Right.
but it was psychosis induced. It was induced through a substance.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
okay, so you're having these.
Well, you figure, but the drugs that wear off, if you sleep, 72 hours, you should be showing 5 days, 10. But I'm here 10 days, and they're pumping me with whatever they are. So at this point, they're making observations on what they're seeing. Okay, well, this is. So I don't know how they measure like what drugs they're giving me as opposed. But I had been off the drugs now because I was
even off the drugs post like use. Some of the symptoms stay with you for 6 months to a year. Like you could have kind of these auditory hallucinations that show up even post like using. So yeah, I guess it's difficult for me to believe that someone could assess that and that early on. So yeah, you're kind of bad doctoring from my point. But shame on you, doctor. Yeah.
Within my drug use too, though, with the amount and the duration and the yeah, I'd say for the duration it went, for the amount used in that time, the fact that I was alive was pretty awesome. That was epic. But at some point the faculties were sure there was no compass for morally, but I mean just it was a skewed perspective. So if looking from the back end, it would
look that way.
Yeah, for sure. And it was that way for I was out there probably 6 years from beginning to end. I just know it was 6 years from my sobriety date to when I first had picked up. So but in between that time, I know I was at treatment 3 times, sober livings, detoxes, things of that nature. I know that I had a 6-figure income doing what I love, something I'm passionate about, to putting myself homeless out there, So everything in between is kind of, So I don't, for that duration, and I don't know how that,
Right.
They diagnose it, but but yeah, but coming from lowest vibration, right? I was coming from definitely the lowest vibration. A lot of shame, but but the day starts off. We start the day off like today.
Oh, I love that. And I know we're getting ready to bring some closure, but I do want to walk, because, we do start from that lowest vibration, which is shame, right? And we talked a lot about that on the show. I wanted to kind of, get your plan of action for someone who might be listening to the show, struggling with these issues.
God bless you.
What do you recommend? What do you suggest? What helped you get to where you're at today, operating at a higher vibration in your life? Like what do you do? Kind of walk us through your daily routine for anyone who might be listening and just looking for a different experience. What would you say?
So I think it's like just meeting people where they're at, right? I'm a very intense person. So I do everything, alcoholically, like I said, too much of anything. It's just the right amount for me. Bring that, I need that. But just meeting people where they're at with what they're willing to do, because it's like, okay, we're pure energy, right? And we're vibrating at a certain frequency depending on what I'm listening to, the conversations, how I'm breathing, about consciously doing breath, my environment, right? So how do I tune into the frequency where I want to vibrate at, right? And to literally lift my spirit, right? Raise my vibration. So the first thing I do, start off in the morning, is first thing I'll do is when my eyes open, I'll say a prayer, and I'm thankful. Thank you for waking me up. Thank you for another chance at this, and just direct my thinking. Please direct my thinking. Show me what I can do for those who are still sick and suffering, and where I can be a maximum usefulness. So I'll say a prayer. I make my bed. It's a big thing for me because there's a spiritual law of order. If my room or my car, if it's disorganized, subconsciously, that's anxiety.
Right.
When it's organized,
so important.
So huge.
So, and just starting where you're at, because even that might, to somebody who's thinking my whole room, my whole house is,
Yeah.
So I need to start there.
just
The bed.
pick a a corner of a room, your bed, pick the dishes, and then just knock one thing out at a time, and you'll actually get lighter. I actually get lighter as I talk about it, right? But so getting out into the sun immediately, watching the sunrise, literally watching the sunrise.
Oh, we did that this morning.
So sun gazing.
Yes, sun gazing.
So good for you.
So good for you, and you'll hear, the sun will give you cancer and make you
Yeah,
blindness.
no.
It's actually the opposite. The sun will improve your vision. That's where the chemicals are made, right?
Yep.
The photon electrons behind your eyes, right? And this is Dr. Jack Cruz. Please look him up, KRUSE. Neurosurgeon, spinal surgeon, I think oral surgeon. So he knows a few things, and he says, you don't need me unless you get shot, get hit by a car, get something like that. Other than that, get into natural law, get in harmony, watch the sunrise.
Natural.
That's where the chemicals are made. It's a mechanism behind your eyes, and it processes in the gut. So beta endorphins,
So
dopamine, serotonin, melatonin. For people who are suicidal or thinking self-harm or depressed, if you can get them into the AM sun to watch the sun, and you have about, depending on how high you get, to see it come above the horizon, you have anywhere from like 5 to 20 minutes. If you're on top of like a mountain, you'll have a longer duration. But for sure, you'll have 5 minutes from wherever you're at to look directly into it, and that's where the chemicals are made. But they won't hurt themselves that day, but you need to encourage them to do it again and again until they'll do it themselves, right? But there's 14,000 chemicals that are made and released in that day. So you have to take 14,000 pills to do that.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It also does.
Too much money.
Yeah, that's a
Oh
lot.
yeah,
You take-
how would?
Oh, wait,
They
back
won't-
to the
we
big
won't- they
back
won't-
farm.
They
Yeah.
won't meet. They just
Boom, I'm gone. They're gonna cut me out of the
I know.
farm, man.
I mean, it's,
This-
yeah. I mean, we can go on and on about all this stuff. That just is everything's
Okay, so
natural
you get
to
them
heal.
out into the sun.
Yeah, the sun.
Get into the sun, and I get my feet in the earth. So recently, I've been, catching the sunrise again consistently, and I'll get my bare feet in there, so start grounding, right?
Yeah.
Start getting those electrical currents, reduce inflammation, start getting electricity going in my body, right? And I've been climbing up the side of a volcano in Carlsbad and watching the sun there with a group of guys,
Nice.
and that's been pretty incredible. Then we'll do some qigongs, get some energy. What we did this morning,
Some Tai
so we
Chi.
get the energy moving, get the body moving, we get the
good.
feet in the earth.
Yeah.
love it.
That's Clint Ober, OLBER for the grounding. If you look up Clint Ober and grounding, Dr. Jack Cruz if you look for the sun. So we get moving, little qigong, and then two-way prayer, how to listen to God. It's a petition to God too, and whatever power it is to you. Like God is not some guy in the sky who. It used to be some guy who was he was sending me to hell because I done fucked up, So I knew where I was going, but now it's everything. It's everything. The energy that's vibrating at certain frequencies, that's God, and I could tap into that consciousness, right? Higher consciousness by breath, right?
Right.
So I'll do a breath work, whether it's like Ujjayi, restorative breathing. My mentor Lois Laney, she's restorative breathing. That's just silent breathing. It's exclusively through the nose, activating the diaphragm with intention, not with effort, and silent breathing. And but I'll do Wim Hof, depending on what I want to do.
I love Wim Hof.
That's-
Yeah,
We're
Wim Hof
talking
is,
about that, yeah.
that'll lift the spirits, and so that's for somebody who wants to physiologically have chemicals start to get released. Wim Hof will release DMT on the breath holds is the most important. You start squeezing, kind of pulling your pelvic floor up, kind of bracing for a punch, and sending the energy from like reproductive organs out through through your crown, that will release
I felt that
opioids, cannabinoids, DMT, all those, the spirit molecule. So you're actually in higher consciousness when you do Wim Hof. So you can connect to whatever the collective consciousness is, you know.
And you feel high.
And
like
you know,
your
you're
body gets
actually
like
high.
tingly, you feel the blood.
You're
it's
actually high. Yeah. And you don't got to change your sobriety day if recovery is a thing for you, you know?
Right, exactly. It's like a free natural high.
Free natural high. So the breath work, the sun, so that'll release chemicals too. So for anybody who's having, you know, depression or even if you're high performing and you know, you have a zest for life and freedom and happiness, add the sun gazing and breath work to it and watch what happens. You know, that's magical. But for somebody whose life depends on this, you know, their quality of life, maybe they're operating at low, you know, in a lot of shame, guilt, or just don't have a passion, don't have a purpose, get into the sun. You know, your purpose, our purpose is to watch the sun rise every morning. That's our purpose. Our purpose is to share it with others, right? That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Before he died, it was what he thought it was transcendence. What he thought was the last level of the pyramid was transcendence.
Right.
Before he died, he realized that it was contribution. It was service to others. That's the highest level. So you actually arrive. It's not when I've become the best version of myself that I'm enlightened that I've arrived. That's the top. No, the top is when I know it's about others, not about me.
Right.
It's about how do I share this with others? Because I'm here. You know, I'm here, literally here, right here in this moment with Darren, with you. You know what I mean? We're literally right here, right now. But like I know how to stay here. I operate. My baseline is now shifted to a place of love, of serenity, of zest, depending on how I consciously want to move through the day, right? For someone who's operating from a different baseline, this is a course of action, you know, through getting in the, so how do I raise the chemicals that are going on, you know, tap into the big pharma inside my body, the little pharma. We're little pharma, you know. I'll go with little pharma all day. I don't mess with big pharma personally, you know. I don't mess with them.
No,
you know,
I'm not messing with them either.
Yeah, no, we love
in any way.
I'm not saying they're all bad. You
We're
know?
fans.
There's.
When you find a good one, let me know, man. So,
if you're coming off of drugs, I think it's good to get some other drugs to help taper off of that. So in that way, I believe in big pharma.
Yeah,
right.
With the means to an end. I like that.
Going for years and years.
Yeah,
and
no,
years.
that's where. Yeah, where
it's a means to an end.
Yeah, get me back to where I can rely on myself and God.
Exactly.
Well, so you know what, Aaron, we're driving up here and it's kind of getting into kind of the topic. He said, we're like plants with emotions.
Yeah,
So
we're literally
I love
designed
that
to be addicted
metaphor
to
because
the sun.
A lot of what you're saying is the same thing that like nourishes our plants. Yeah, look at my beautiful snake plant.
They're the best,
That's good
huh?
Yes, but the same minerals that are found in the soil.
The EMFs, it'll suck in the EMFs. It's good and give good oxygen. Yeah,
have been found in also us.
Yeah. No, it's exactly the same. It's a mirror. It's good soil and us. It's the same manganese, copper,
it is
magnesium. It's all silica. It's all the same. It's all the same with good soil. Yeah. So that's where you want to make sure you eat from. So that's a way too. So it's like
so you get into nutrition, kind of diet.
Just eat what's, you know, I mean, you can get measurements now. Get your microbiome through Viome, get it tested. You know, there's a few different things to measure, but or you could just do an elimination diet and see, reintroduce things back into your body. If dairy, see if that. Most people are not lactose intolerant. They just eat. That's just garbage milk. Raw milk has huge benefits. You know, I didn't drink milk for years. I'm intense. I did Dr. Sebi for like you know, I don't know how long. You know, years. You know, and it's like. Okay, when I find a balance or harmony, I'm like, okay, I'm missing some things though by not eating grass-fed, grass-finished. Something. If I eat meat, it's ceremoniously, it's religiously. I pay homage to the, you know, to the animal that gave its life. You know, for me, you know.
I love that.
And listening to your body, I think the more you are connected, right, and you do the sun, you do the barefoot, you do all this stuff, right, you're going to know like what you want to eat. Like you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm craving like really good red meat right now because like you need the iron. You know what I mean? You just listen.
It's so true because even when I'm exercising, I'm more conscientious of what I'm putting into my body.
Yeah.
That awareness is that versus like when I'm not exercising, I'm not in tune with my body. I'm like hitting Chick-fil-A, like defaulting to emotional eating.
Yeah.
I'm eating that last Oreo cookie.
Right.
Like, so
Speaking of, I went too deep yesterday. I was like, oh man, I haven't had this for a minute. Let me get two. Yeah, too much of anything, right? I could have done one and wet the whistle.
Yeah.
And I tried to pawn it off on you.
You did.
No,
he was bad influence on me last night.
It
was good. That was a good treat. It was a good treat.
Yeah. So for someone who's in that lower vibration, or just maybe would benefit from a lift of the spirit. The breath will lift our spirit. So, Wim Hof, Ujjayi, Breath of Fire, all of it. They all have benefits. Restorative breathing. Look up Lois Laney. She changed my life. She changed our lives, impacted us, allowed us to work with any human. Restorative breathing is how we're supposed to breathe. Like if you didn't have an umbilical cord wrapped around your neck, or you were in a C-section or something traumatic happened at birth, then that's how babies breathe. But if they did, you want to repattern their breathing because they become mouth breathers.
That's like a whole thing too, right? Is like the traumatic birth thing, like can really.
Oh no, it'll set you if you're.
They
if you're
pulled me
breather.
out with like forceps.
Oh,
Wait.
so resetting your breathing would be
I think
pay dividends. We'll do
Isn't
that.
birth in itself traumatic?
Right?
It is.
It is. But some people have the umbilical.
But the C-section or the umbilical cord,
Yeah.
And then the mouth breathing.
Actually, I was watching House of Dragons the other day. In the first episode,
He's trying to sell us on this thing.
No, you gotta watch it. It's good. If you haven't watched
Shameless
Game of Thrones,
plug.
this is the
Shameless
prequel.
plug.
But
I think he's getting a kickback from them.
But no, they were in this scene. This woman, the king had to make a choice, right? Spoiler alert. Do you want to have your son born and your wife die, or do you want to lose your son and save your wife? So he had to make this decision.
Right. It's the wife or the son.
So obviously he chose the son, right, to carry on the bloodline.
Oh,
right?
that's a self-involved king. No, I believe that.
Well,
No, it's interesting.
Well,
it's
you
hard.
got to think about it.
I know.
The show is all about bloodline and
Right.
kind of moving the bloodline, right? So they do the C-section upwards. So they basically gut her to get the child out.
So what if it was a girl?
They would have saved the wife, probably.
Right, obviously.
But they have a
No,
good...
it's true. That's
No. Because even in the show, because the son didn't make it, I'm spoiling the show right now. I feel so
Now
bad.
I don't even want to watch
People
it.
right now are just
Turn it
hating
up.
me
Mute
who
us,
haven't
mute
seen
us,
it. So
mute
if
us,
you
Darren.
haven't seen House of Dragons, don't listen to this show yet. Don't listen to this show. Major spoiler alert. So since the son doesn't make it, he gives his daughter power to move into the power of being the queen.
Okay.
First queen.
This is how I want to watch all my shows.
Nice save.
Because I don't watch too much TV. I don't watch any. But I want to get my information just like that. No, I just want to have you break it down for me. It's way better.
Just tune into the show if you want to know about Game of Thrones, House of Dragons. We got you.
That's
I got
legit.
you.
No, I'm serious.
I got all
This
the
is good.
details.
Yeah. Then I don't have the guilt, the shame of the Lord Revelation. Watch TV. The EMF. I'm looking at blue light. Oh, I'm getting all these.
But the show is put together very well. It's very psychological thriller because they have betrayal, they have family secrets.
Like it's
they have
that's my
shame.
jam.
Yes, I mean right up my alley. So it caters to just what's familiar to me. So check it out.
Yeah, natural law. That's what we want. Get him natural law. And put the same effort and energy that I did it. Whatever makes you come to life. You know what I mean? Like I'll be out there dancing. No shoes on in the grass, 3:30 a.m. I'm sure my neighbors are like, oh, he's on drugs.
He's on a good one.
This guy's on
I was
drugs.
thinking the same thing.
But whatever makes you come to life. I play. God has designed a life for me that I don't need a vacation from. Because if I go on vacation, right, I go on vacation and I'm like, oh, I'm not stressed. I feel good. I now I have energy. I have this. What does it mean? It probably means I want to take a look at my life then, because if I've not experienced that in my life, then I might just be making some decisions that based on whatever's my, my inspiration, whether it's money or it's women or whatever it is, I'm feeling unfulfilled.
Right,
if I need a vacation from my life, I want to take a look at that because I don't need a vacation from my life.
Right.
That's beautiful.
I'll tell you what,
just by getting out of the way.
Once you have kids, you need a vacation after your vacation because the vacation is not really a vacation. So I'm like, all right, let's go on a vacation. We'll leave the kids here. But it's so true. If you build a life that you don't need to escape from, then why do I need to lean towards a mood altering substance to kind of alter my state of consciousness if my reality, I'm okay with it? Because I think that was another component to my using too, is that my reality was so terrible that mood altering substance would give me that temporary relief and escape. And so I think it does come down to really building a life in which you don't need to escape from.
Right.
I think you were talking about that earlier too when you're talking. I think it was. I don't think we were recording yet, but when we're talking about
Darren's always listening.
yeah,
He's listening all the time. He's
Yes.
either LSD or doing like, so for me, I'm like, okay, if I'm doing ayahuasca or something, right? I've never done it. Not that I'm opposed to it, but ayahuasca or doing ibogaine or these things, right? If God created it, we could have a conversation about it for sure. You know what I mean? If man didn't put his filthy paws on it, or, it's in harmony, it's worth a discussion, But for me, it's like, okay, if I'm microdosing, right? If I'm not doing any spiritual work, I'm not doing breath work, I'm not meditating, I'm not doing sound bowls, I'm not soul gazing with people, I'm not really carrying the message, being of service, if I'm not doing that on a daily basis, and I'm going to go do ayahuasca and say I'm spiritual now, and wonder why I'm not, and wonder why I'm still in a karma, right? Karma is patterns. It's not like I did something bad, according to Akashic Records, and I believe that the way they presented it. Karma is not that I did something bad and something bad is going to happen to me. No, it's that I keep on putting myself in these things, patterns, and in my lives, whatever, that until I get aware of these patterns and break these patterns or heal whatever bond needs to be healed or whatever it is dynamic.
wounds.
Yeah.
Whatever dynamic it is with whoever it is, until that happens, then I'm going to stay in these patterns, I'm going to keep this, and that's karma, right?
It's energy too, right? So it's
Yeah.
like you're not going to attract what you are. That's all everything is, right?
That,
So-
absolutely.
Yeah, you ever had that experience where like, man, how do I keep ending
Right.
up in the same situation? Like, how did this happen to me all the time? I feel like it's those lessons kind of that you're talking about that will continue to show up in our life until I get the lesson.
Right.
It's like, oh, I get it. This is my abandonment coming out here. I'm used to
Yeah.
attracting people that are going to leave me.
Exactly.
There were some light bulbs going off when you were talking about earlier about your dad and then your mom, and that was how the tied in with the dynamic when getting high. It was like that power, and it was like, wow, that's that for me too. But I never wrapped my head around that, or even like, so when you were saying, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's it, like for sure. Yeah, with the ayahuasca or the things of that nature, for me, I'm like, okay, it's like me, lining up to get a shot. You know what I mean? Like, but I eat processed foods. I don't exercise. I don't do it. I'm like, yo, make me not get sick. Put a shot. Like, no, like, bro, no, that's not gonna make you healthy. That doesn't make you healthy. Like, check the ingredients first of all and see liability. Like, check all that too, just to be
Just to
good.
be sure.
Just be good on that. But like, so for me, it's like, okay, just be mindful. If I'm doing, one of my guys who lives, the one who took us through the energy
Tai
work,
Chi?
he was down there doing ayahuasca in Peru or Colombia for like. He's like, I did like 40 times. I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah,
probably
that's a little too much. Like, that's cute, but like, how many demons do you really have? Like, right?
So it's like, okay,
You start making up demons, at that
Right?
point.
yeah, I think So I just had to be mindful, but what it's all. I have no right now intention or even it's not desire. I have no desire to do anything other than more of what I'm doing and sharing it. But it's never off the table, and I'll never say never.
I feel
I think it goes back to, I haven't done ayahuasca, but I'd be open to it, and other things too. But it just goes back to like people not connecting. You know what I mean? What is it? How many
the
inches
17 inches.
here to here, and it's so
Head to
much
the heart.
easier
That's
to.
that's the longest journey traveled. The head to the heart.
Yeah, so it's so
That's
much
what they say.
easier to like have someone else tell you what you should do with your life, right? So it's so much easier to not have to make a decision, right? To not trust yourself
right.
for a lot of people,
True.
right? So it's like,
I qualify definitely. That definitely hit
Check.
home. I used to definitely be that for sure.
yeah.
What do you want to eat?
I wish I would have known that.
Yeah, whatever you want. I mean, sometimes even that alone
Yeah.
is like, I don't know. What do
Right.
you want? And they say that's a girl thing. I don't know. Maybe that's I'm tapping into that feminine energy. I never know what I want to eat. I'm better at it now.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly what I want. But like going into the change, I didn't know myself. I was so disconnected from myself
Right.
that I didn't even know what I liked. Like, do I like tomatoes? Do I like ketchup? I don't know. Do you like it? If you like it, I'll try it.
You know what's wild is
It's true.
we get into these situations, right? Well, me myself, right? It's like, I'll ask people now, what do you need from me, and what can I do better for you? Because if I expect you to know what I need, that's a lot of pressure. Like sometimes I don't know what I need. You know what I mean? So to expect anybody else to know, but I'll ask just so there's no gray area, and I know clearly I might not come through with it, but I did know what you needed, and if I have enough wherewithal, compassion, and I want to, show up as the highest version of myself, expression to you, and let you know how valued you are in my life, then I will do that. But instead of guessing, I'll just say, what do you need from me and what can I do better for you?
I wonder if this is a gender thing. And maybe, Chelsea, you can help us with like a woman's perspective, right?
I can, but I kind of think like a guy in a lot of ways, but I'll help you.
Because I think it's a gender thing,
think
right?
He's going to say India right now. He's going to say India.
Do you think that like women sometimes feel like, especially if you're in a relationship with someone, like you should know like what I like, and because we've been together X amount of years or time, you should know what I like and then pay attention to that. But what if you don't know?
Wait, what do you mean? I think,
I feel like there's
how long have you been
expectation.
together? I mean, you should probably know some things if you've been together for a while, but if they haven't told you, if you're eating a certain food every day or you're doing this, like hopefully like your partner would like kind of get a clue, right?
Right, but see, that's my point though. Like, do I have to keen in on that clue, or kind of like what you're saying is, what is it that you need and what could I do more to kind of meet that need?
I think that's good communication. I think that's good, but I think so many people, and probably women in some ways, right? But I think it's also society, and so like women that aren't comfortable with themselves, like I'm comfortable with myself, so I'm more able to say what I need now as opposed to like 10 years ago, right?
Right.
So I think it's a comfort thing too, and just being comfortable with yourself. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
A sane, sound ideal. Yeah. So there's sane, sound, sexual ideal, right?
Sound?
Sexual ideal. So my ideals, right? I'll write down, and this is what I was taught, right? Was to write down everything that I would want out of a partner, whether obviously or attractive, forgiving, because I'm gonna have to share some things of my life that she might find disagreeable.
Accepting,
loyal.
There you go.
Loyal, open to spiritual concepts. She doesn't have to be levitating or she doesn't have to be doing anything. Just open to it, that we grow together, right? So I write down all the things that I want out of a partner, right? And then become those. I got to become those things. If I'm going to expect them, I got to become, and when I become those, I can attract them. That's happened in my life recently, and it's incredible, but yeah, that's, and coming from a place where if there's not disagreement, but just even there's maybe we're not seeing eye to eye on something, then it's like, oh, well, let me pray on it. I'm going to pray, I'm going to meditate, and I'll get back to you. I'm like, yeah, me too. Or let's pray,
That's
and meditate
awesome.
together.
Yeah.
Or let's bring God into everything we do. Let's and watching the sunrise, whether together or apart, but at the same time doing it, and constructive review, looking at the day, it's like, it's magical. It's
It's kind of that saying where they say, in order for you to get the woman that you want, you first need to be the man she needs you to be. So it kind of speaks to that. And I remember reading Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw.
That's like my favorite. I have that book. Yeah, so it's like one of my favorites.
It's John Bradshaw?
John Bradshaw, amazing. And he's also one of us guy. In the sense that he's in recovery as well. Yeah. Well, he's passed away.
Adult Children of Alcoholics is what he did a lot of the writing for.
Big work on that, a lot of work on that. And
I think that might be the football
he
player.
talks about.
Yeah, it is.
He says,
and I don't know why I know that.
No, Terry, that's the football player.
Yeah, like that's like probably
I was like, man, he's got a big heart.
5 football players I know.
He's got a big heart.
So he talks about in his book, if you ever walk into a room and experience love at first sight, he says run the other way.
Yeah, because it's not love; it's your wounds.
He says that we're attracted to people who are at the same level of dysfunction that we are.
Yeah.
So it does speak to that. I love that you shared that. Is really me getting in tune with myself, and so that I can attract what I'm looking for in a relationship. In that,
totally.
So I know we're getting here close to the end. Chelsea, you want to close this out? You got anything?
Final thoughts. Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Say something politically incorrect.
I don't know.
Take a deep breath and there you go.
Yeah, take us home. No pressure.
I mean, it's been a real joy, I mean, I think we could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours, but I am kind of hungry.
I sensed it.
You did?
I sensed the hunger.
The hangry?
Yes. And
I'm not being hangry.
Fasting benefits.
To avoid
fasting
the hangry,
benefits,
I said we better bring some closure here today before we
see?
experience
Just
another
making
side
the woman
here.
the hangry one, huh? Putting it on the woman.
There we
Just
go.
kidding.
Finally got politically incorrect. I thought you were going to say Indian or Native American. Something had to go off.
No, I
You said I couldn't have a women's perspective, and I was like, well, you don't know what I identify as, so that's...
Oh, right, yeah, you don't know.
That's almost,
Maybe
that's almost,
do you know there's like it's like a list this big? Like what the hell?
wasn't
just bring it in
people?
for a hug, I say. Just bring it in for a hug. You're good. Yeah.
I wasn't being.
Let me just call you your name. What's your name?
sensitive.
That's
What's
what I
your-
do.
let me-
I just call the
everybody by
name.
Let me just call you by your
You know
name.
what's
Let's
funny?
save all the, safer for me, better for you.
Right?
The most sweetest sounding word in any language is your name.
Yeah.
So that's why before I learned the language, like when I was in Bali, before I learned the language, everybody's name. And then in Brazil, same thing. So just the name, because you always turn when you hear your name. It's the sweetest sounding
Right.
word in any language is your name.
Right.
Yeah,
I
great
love
place to
that.
start.
I love that. Bali, Brazil, man. We could be here.
I know,
another
there's,
4
like, so
hours.
much.
We didn't even get to Bali. That experience is probably amazing. The culture there.
My friend he sponsored me to go there to get off crack. I was on like a 5-day run in a hotel. A lot of contraband on me. I wonder if that was a time, because I know there was a couple of windows of time where I thought the world might be better off without me. I wasn't. I was definitely probably there was a lot of shame, so I was vibrating very low.
Yeah.
Right.
Like days and days and days up for days smoking crack, and then maybe there might have been a little meth sprinkled in, but I wasn't quite ready to convert yet.
Yeah.
I wasn't sold yet.
was on the
You
fence.
sound pretty sold on,
Yeah, I
on
was,
the game.
so,
I'm
I
not
was
sure
loyal
whoever
to
you
the
were.
foil, my friend.
Loyal to
Yeah,
the foil.
that's the only thing.
I've never heard that.
Me either.
Loyal to the
I was all
foil.
in.
That's a good one.
I love it.
So yeah, so my friend brought me over there. He, had been, and I almost missed the flight. He thought I was gonna miss the flight, and I made it to the international airport at LAX, and man, I thought we were supposed to go to Tahiti. We were supposed to go. He worked for the airlines, and we ended up in Bali. And I didn't realize for like 5 days that we were in Bali until I was mentioning some of this, and they were like, "No, I think you're."
I know, right?
Man,
I love it.
it's
Where'd
been a
you
good
think you
run.
were?
I thought I was in Tahiti.
Oh, okay, got it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess it's kind of similar. Right?
Yeah,
True,
I don't.
true.
Okay.
Geographically, I have no idea where they are. Even
Yeah.
to this day,
I know. See, is that politically incorrect?
I didn't say Indian or Native American, but yeah. So yeah, I ended up living there. Yeah, I didn't come back with my friends. I stayed there.
Wait, hold on. Did she ask you if you're native? Where did this
No.
Oh,
Again with the woman.
She said, "What do you,
Oh
what do you
my God.
identify as? You look."
I never even asked
And she
that.
said, "How do you got your teeth if you smoke all that crack?"
No, it's because I was
she didn't say that. She was
sitting.
thinking it, though.
I was sitting
She was
Indian
thinking it.
style, but I don't know if
That's
you
where
can
it
say
started.
Indian. Like, isn't this what this is? I don't know what you call it anymore.
Crisscross
Buddha
applesauce.
style. Buddha. What do you call it? Buddha style?
There you
Buddha,
go.
oh,
There you go.
could be.
I'm gonna call it Buddha. I'm sitting Buddha style.
Aaron,
I don't know how the English
it's
would
been
put
a
it.
pleasure, my brother.
Yeah. I
I'm
love you,
so
man.
happy to see and hear just the journey and where you're at today. It's really inspiring for me to get you introduced me a lot to these concepts, and I've been able to implement them in my own life. And as a result, it's helped me not only be a better person, a better father, but also a more effective teacher. And so I really,
And I learned so much from you today, from both of you.
yeah,
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
such a pleasure to have
Awesome.
you on the show.
And I love
man.
you.
And I love you, and hopefully we'll get you back in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, get you
Yeah.
back in here soon. I want to hear about Bali,
Yeah.
Bali and Brazil.
Thank you,
There's
Darren.
so
man.
much.
Thank you for locking us in, man.
Yeah.
Thank you,
and
too.
Thank you and thank you. It's like, I don't know, just lovely learning from both of you and hearing your experiences. And I think it's really beautiful that you are open to, talking about all this because it does help others.
And
Just
I
off-
want to hear more about the 2 nights in jail.
No, I didn't
know.
expect it. Okay, so
Is it
see
2 nights
again.
in jail? No,
It was
is
not
6
2
months?
nights in jail. I never.
I don't know if I feel safe. Did we sign a waiver? We're not doing
Okay,
background
now I'm
checks.
feeling attacked
We're not
and
doing
triggered.
background.
Okay.
We're not doing background checks here now.
I'm feeling
We're just-
triggered. I never went to jail. I went to like a holding cell and then I was out.
That's
I never
jail.
that's it.
That's
but it was
jail.
for like 4 hours.
Chelsea.
Sounds dangerous.
That's jail.
Time is all an illusion.
Yes. And
It
jail
was
is just an
eternity.
illusion
Oh my God.
because you know what? At the end of the day, it's
October
not a-
28th. We're
it's
going to
no-
log that
it's-
in. That was the birthday, and she was incarcerated
Yes.
somewhere around.
But it's not a physical place, though. My point is, jail is not only a physical place. Like some people can be in jail and never step a day in a holding cell,
Right.
and I think that's actually more lethal than someone who actually is in a physical place.
Yeah.
because I felt more freedom in jail.
Oh, yeah.
than I ever felt
Yeah.
out of jail.
Yeah.
Like the peace and freedom that was introduced to me in that environment was one that I don't think I ever would have been able to experience out here.
Especially because you were
So-
open-minded. You were open-minded to some spiritual teachings and some things like
and
process.
that opened
like,
my eyes up to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a physical place, because some people can be incarcerated and not even know it, chain and
Oh
ball
yeah.
right now. As
so
we
many
speak.
people. Yeah.
And so if that's you, just tap into the show. And
What people?
Everyone.
Again.
No, I just-
Now I'm being bullied. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
I think we need to dive deeper into that. Maybe
Oh,
we're
on a
gonna-
constructive review, there's going to be some resentments.
We might bring her in off camera and get you a one-on-one.
I probably
we
need
can-
it.
we can-
I probably need it. Trust me.
Yes.
Man, thank
We
you for
all
having
need
me,
it.
man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Let's do it. Let's go eat before we get beat up by Chelsea.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay.